Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast or media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, LuckyEevee, Mathmachine, and Stryker. Today is our 50th episode, and we hope to give you many, many more because we have officially crossed 50 episodes of this show.
Yep.
Can't believe it that we ever would have made it, and here's the many, many more. And we're going to
5-0.
celebrate. Yep, we're going to celebrate by discussing easily the oldest thing we are ever going to cover on this podcast, the 1914 animated short, Gertie the Dinosaur. Let's get things started. So, Winsor McCay was the creator of the Little Nemo comic strip, which is probably better known for its very strange 1980s movie. He also did a live-action movie called Dream of the Welsh Rarebit Fiend, which is basically about a man who eats too much food and has a nightmare.
Oh, dear.
And, Gertie the Dinosaur actually started off as a vaudeville show way before movies. What it was Gertie, Winsor would screen the movie, and he would talk directly to Gertie on the stage and that. And because it was so popular, William Fox of 20th Century Fox fame decided to make it into a film version, and it really turned out great. And it's probably one of the most influential things we were ever going to talk about on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Winsor claimed he was the first man to make animated cartoons, but he definitely isn't. I mean, he's lying there because there's cartoons from like the 1900s and even the 1890s. So
also, those because
he definitely wasn't the first guy to ever make a cartoon or even to put it to film.
Or even make moving pictures,
his
quote
became
unquote.
the most influential.
Let's put it this way. Let's say this is the first cartoon to be influential, or the first cartoon to actually be noticed by a wide variety of people, I think.
Yeah,
Exactly,
Gertie is to animation what Pong is to the video game industry.
Exactly. Without that, without Gertie, I mean, there was so much with the influence, and we're going to get to it later on. But, I mean, Gertie is basically... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Aren't there like earlier animations like from Japan or something?
Yeah. There's that from Japan. There's some France. There's the cutout animation from Germany. It has existed for a long time, but I feel like this is the one that was the most influential one. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it wasn't really as known in the past, but thanks to Gertie, now it is.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. So one thing that's interesting with this cartoon that I did not know. It has live action portions because I only previously saw videos of it with just the animated part of it. So the short begins with a framing device. Winsor McCay going to a history museum with several of his colleagues. Their car gets a flat tire and they're forced to go into the museum. They see a dinosaur skeleton, and one interesting thing to note here, they called dinosaurs dinosauruses in the intertitles. Which turns out to have been like an old term for dinosaurs or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. And also, it would later be replaced with a different name. I forget what it was, but
yeah. Like Brontosaurus. But back then, it was just called like a Dinosauruses. Which, to be fair, it was
works better a little bit.
It was 110 years ago. So you gotta expect different stuff there.
Honestly, yeah. Like, understandable, even.
Yep. So basically, Winsor makes a bet with one of his friends that he can make a dinosaur alive again with animation. And we get to see some of the process of animation as it takes 6 months to complete the film. Winsor basically explains to his friend and to the audience and it's fascinating to think, the concept of animation had to be explained to a wide group, like how this actually worked. Because the intertitle says I had to do 10,000 drawings to make them move. And stuff like that. It really is fascinating. Think of a time when something that we take for granted every day had to be basically introduced to people.
Yeah.
You also have to consider that the idea of moving film itself was only 10, 15 years old at that point. So the idea of moving pictures, drawings, must have been so out there.
Yeah. Wow.
Definitely.
You spacemen from the future really know your stuff. Oh man. It also oh gosh, I had a thought. Oh yeah, it also reminds me of this joke Wander Over Yonder did, where like Lord Hater is making a animated feature to show how he's the superior person and whatnot, and he's like, animation is so hard. People who do this for a living should be given more respect.
It
That's
also reminds
basically
me.
the gist of the joke.
Yeah, it also reminds me of the classic Kirby anime episode, the cartoon buffoon. Do you know how many drawings I'd have to do, sire? I'd go crazy if I had to keep on animating. And then of course, DD coming at you turns out to not be so good, but they tried. But now again,
Right. Yeah, and I think it's also pretty much a message to every other aspiring animator. Like there's Batu, there's Kim C. Jones, etc., pretty much.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we also get a cute little bit of slapstick comedy here as one of Windsor's assistants. He's carrying all the pictures and he falls down a flight of stairs with them.
Charlie Chaplin.
Yep,
I'm a
and
sucker for
you
the
gotta
old
figure this is the
vaudeville
time.
bit
Yeah.
of just stacking things onto a person until he can't carry anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like
Laurel
what,
and Hardy,
Angron said,
actually.
it is very Chaplin-esque, and that's because Chaplin was a huge star when this came out. So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was huge in like the 1910s. So yeah, we then cut to a dinner party as Windsor begins drawing his sketch of Gertie. One of Windsor's friends basically says that, "Oh, you said you'd make it move." Then Windsor turns the page to show a prehistoric landscape, and we finally get the cartoon to start. And now, here's the interesting thing. The cartoon itself doesn't really have a story per se. It's really mostly Windsor commanding Gertie like a trained animal and her reaction to things. That being said, this is absolutely amazing. Again, 110 years old. There was no cell animation. For each and every frame, Windsor would have to redraw the background again and again.
Yeah,
Man
this
was
came out before
insane.
Steamboat Willie, to give you an
This came
idea.
out before like Oswald the Rabbit. This came out before Coco the Clown, the Alice comedies. This was like this was the like beginning of like modern and Western animation. Animation in general really could be traced back to this one short.
It's even older than Bimbo the dog, actually.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
dang.
it's even
And
older than
Bimbo the
like Coco
puppy.
the Clown.
Like, you name a famous cartoon character, this precedes it.
Yeah, Gertie actually also, that's another thing to point out. Gertie is technically the first cartoon character because cartoons before this mostly consisted of like various little scenes and sequences and that. They didn't really have characters per se, like actual like, personalities. Whereas
That
Gertie,
was limited to comic strips.
yeah, exactly. But like Gertie really is I mean she's amazing, And
Yeah.
so yeah, now that we've done basically talking about it, let's talk about what happens at it. So Windsor basically tells Gertie to come out and take a bow. She slowly trudges out of the cave and she eats a rock and a tree along the way. And again, Gertie's design, it's so simplistic and yet it is so charming. Her eyes don't even have pupils, but yet she is so expressive. She really is like a comic strip character come to life, basically.
Yeah, it feels that way, yeah.
So one thing you will notice is Gertie does a little back and forth dance, and this shot is actually repeated quite a few times. And according to the Wikipedia page on this, so I don't know how accurate it is, this was the first time animation loops were ever used in animation.
That is valid.
Yep. So basically, she does this little back and forth dance as Windsor commands her to stop. Gertie then bows to the audience, and Windsor tells her to raise her right foot. And then, after doing another little bit of her dance, she does so. Then Windsor tells her to do the same with her left foot. Gertie still she isn't listening, and she's dancing. And then we get to see a sea serpent rise out of the lake in the background. And it has a pretty neat design. It looks like almost like, I guess, an Eastern dragon, to be honest, which is very interesting.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah. Very much looks like an Eastern dragon, all things considered.
So yeah, Gertie stares at the sea serpent, and Windsor tells her to ignore it and raise her left foot. Gertie, of course, doesn't listen. She just continues to dance. Before she leans towards the audience and she opens her mouth. I don't know because the version I saw had no sound on this, the YouTube upload. I don't know if she's supposed to be like yawning or roaring or laughing or what. But whatever happened.
I think I think she was trying to like eat the audience. Like, you know how like in the past, like they saw a train coming at the screen and it was like, oh shit!
Oh yeah,
I feel
right,
it's
like the
that.
Lumiere brothers, like that, yeah.
Could also
that's
be
kinda what I
that. Who
thought was
knows?
going on.
Oh, that very well could have been. So yeah, basically Winsor tells off Gertie, which causes her to start crying. And again, her
Oh, man,
expression
don't be a
here for
dick.
something that this old, it is so like vivid, Again, it's very cartoonish in that, but it's still for again a 110-year-old film. It is really really amazing how much emotion he gets out of this character, who again doesn't even have pupils.
Indeed.
So yeah, Winsor then stops Gertie from crying by giving her a pumpkin to eat, which is incredibly tiny compared to her. When it's in her mouth, it's basically like a small pebble in that.
Yeah.
Yep. What happens is she then raises her left foot correctly, and then she turns to the tree stump and she basically eats it again, or eats it rather.
Like finishes the tree basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
like,
that was
yeah,
Winsor
like,
McCay going, I'm done animating this thing.
It very well could have been because I wouldn't be surprised if that's why Winsor had Gertie eat the tree and eat the rock, so he wouldn't have to draw like a rock, 10,000 times in a row.
Indeed.
For sure.
Yeah. So then we get to see an elephant pass her by, which I think might be a mammoth, although I don't know if it's supposed to have like hair or not. So yeah, the thing that's interesting with this elephant, it almost looks like it's rotoscoped. But rotoscope wouldn't exist for like another 20 years. So,
Yeah.
how did they get this elephant to look so incredibly realistic? Again, with like 1910s technology. I remember
Winsor
reading.
McCay was known for being incredibly proficient at almost photorealistic drawings.
Exactly. And like what Chuck Jones once said, he said that it was like the first being to step out of the primordial ooze was Albert Einstein. The second was an amoeba. He was that far ahead of everyone else. He said it took the rest of us like 20 years just to figure out how the hell he did all the stuff that he did. And this is
Yeah.
a guy like Chuck Jones saying that, so he means seriousness.
To prove that, going back in the short a little bit, when he's at the dinner with his friends and first draws the picture of Gertie, that's not sped up. He did that in real time, and he did it fast and detailed. He was just
That is
that dang
amazing.
good.
Well, dang.
That is
Honestly,
so awesome.
yeah.
I did not know that. Wow. That right there is skill.
That is impressive.
Yep. So basically, Winsor tells Gertie not to hurt the elephant. Gertie, of course, doesn't listen, and she just throws the elephant in the lake, where I kind of like this. Again, it has really, again, for something so old, it really has solid comedy. Just that look on like the elephant, how annoyed it looks when it's peering out of the lake is really, really funny.
Yeah, the elephant was like the best part for me.
Yeah, I can definitely see why. But so yeah, Gertie then begins dancing as Winsor explains that she loves music, and the version I saw did not have music sound, so it was a little eerie. But I did discover something else. If you play the Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga battle music over Gertie dancing, I kid you not, it syncs up almost perfectly.
Well,
It's like one of
dang.
those things like Dark Side in the Mood and Wizard of Oz, basically.
It was
That's
not
sad.
intentional, and yet it just
It actually syncs up really, really close, which
It
is
just
something that I just
cosmically
found out at
happened.
random, really, because I was playing, Superstar Saga. I had the thing open in another tab, and I was like, "Hey, wait a minute! Whoa!"
well,
Make
dang.
life weird.
Yeah, definitely something
Definitely
interesting.
bizarre.
So yeah, Gertie's dance again. It's really adorable, and it really is the same dance almost every time. Although now she does a little bit more with it compared to the usual like back and forth loop. It really is so charming,
Yeah, I'll bet it's a little charming too. Yeah, it was just meh when I first saw it, but it grew on me a little bit as she looked like she had fun with it. Like,
Yep. So then what happens is the elephant squirts Gertie in the face with water, and the way the elephant sprays at her, this looks like it would have been a pain to animate because how it sprays all over the place in that. I mean, again, I don't want to sound
really.
like but it really is something that it really is impressive. That the amount of like the water just hitting her face and spraying everywhere. It does
And
look like
covering
it's
the whole camera.
exactly. And what happens is Gertie then basically picks up a rock and she throws it at the elephant, but she ends up missing it. And later on, we'd find out that Killer Croc evidently saw this cartoon because he took lessons. I threw a rock at him. It was a big rock.
It was a big rock.
It was a big rock.
Yeah. But yeah, the elephant basically, she misses it as it swims off, apparently. And of course, there is no story, so we don't find out what happens. But Gertie then lies down for a few moments before she lifts up her tail and she uses it to scratch her nose and her head in a really cute little sequence. And again, it's a cute little detail that gives her a lot more character than you think something like this would do.
Yep.
Yeah, very much so.
And then we get to see something very interesting and relevant to our podcast because we get to see a dragon flying overhead as Gertie looks at it in wonder. And this dragon design is very, very interesting because it has 4 wings and it has no limbs. It looks like something almost like a medieval tapestry kind of thing in a way. The way it's drawn, like its shape in that. And it's very interesting because evidently, I don't know if they really knew about pterodactyls back in the 1910s or that. So I'm not sure if he would have put that in if he had knowledge of it or not. But it definitely gives it a very unique, almost not so much surreal, but very unique vibe to it. Let's say.
Yeah.
I love McKay's interaction with Gertie revolving around that. Basically pretending like Gertie was seeing things.
Yeah, and
Oh
again,
my
I love
gosh.
that too, especially how defensive she gets when she keeps shaking her head no in response.
No.
And then Winsor just keeps like needling her about it. Like oh, would you lie to me? And then she keeps shaking her head no like that.
No, like, oh man, like, give this girl a break, man.
Honestly, yes. Why did
Yeah.
this? Honestly, like around this time, I just realized, dear God, she's adorable.
Yeah. And what happens is Winsor lets Gertie take a drink of the lake, and Gertie slowly ends up drinking the entire thing, of course. And while Gertie drinks the lake, we then get a small humanoid figure approaching her, and it's supposed to be Winsor McCay herself. And then the intertitle says, I will show you Gertie is not afraid of me, and she will take me for a ride. Gertie then puts Winsor in his mouth and then puts him on her back. Gertie bows to the audience and walks off, and Winsor, okay, again, this is a great, groundbreaking, absolutely amazing short. But it was 110 years ago, because at this point with Winsor, it almost looks like he's whipping her in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
It's supposed to be ye old ringmaster.
Yeah,
kind of
like
whip
with the
rather than,
circus and that, like
actual
what's
paint whip.
That
But
is
yeah.
what in the modern day we would call animal cruelty.
Yeah, but again, this is something that is 110 years old. That there's no point in saying, "Oh, it's not." I mean, it's
no, you
110
can't-
years old.
you can't fault
judge
it.
something by today's standards because it is so far removed from things today, and it is a fantastic short. Regardless, it is absolutely amazing. And then after Gertie walks off, we then briefly cut back to the live action dinner. The men cheer over the cartoon, and the man who bet Winsor that he couldn't do it, he lost the bet, so he has to pay for their dinner, and basically that's how it ends. So now we talked about Gertie, but that we are not finished with talking about Gertie because usually I like to end when we talk about the media piece by talking a little bit about its influence. I found so much with this. Many things to talk about with Gertie. Gertie the Dinosaur inspired many people to go into animation, including Walt Disney, Max Fleischer, Otto Messmer, Paul Terry, he of Terry Toons like Farmer Gray and whatnot.
Well, dang.
I mean, this inspired so many people who would then inspire other people to go into animation. This really is like the originator of Western animation.
You name an animation studio in the 20s and 30s, they all saw Gertie the Dinosaur.
Gertie the Dinosaur.
That's what made them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the interesting thing is Gertie the Dinosaur wasn't even the only Gertie the Dinosaur short, because there was a plagiarized version of the short, which is pretty much the exact same thing. It's not even like when Warner Brothers started out, they did like a blatant knockoff of Mickey Mouse called Foxy, who was literally a lock, stock, and barrel knockoff of Mickey. This wasn't even a
Except with
knockoff.
teeth.
This is literally the exact same short as Gertie the Dinosaur, just done a little bit differently. It was done by John Bray, who was a contemporary and a rival of McKay's, and it might be a little more technically impressive, and that Gertie's design is a bit more what you'd think like a modern cartoon character would be compared to her more primitive design, but come on, it's like, what would you rather, what do you think is better, Pirates of the Caribbean or the Asylum knockoff of Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yeah, that basically sums it up.
Yeah, and here's the thing that's... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What makes me laugh is the amount of work in this early era that had to be put in to make a copy like this. Why not just make your own fucking thing?
Exactly. It's like he saw the success of Gertie and he was like, well, maybe if I do Gertie, I can be famous too. But here's the thing that's really crazy about it. In the 1970s, Gertie was kind of lost for a while. For some time, in some years in the 70s, this was actually passed off as the original in some circles.
Oh,
Can
dang.
you believe that? The knockoff, they actually thought the knockoff was the original. Thankfully, that has been proven to be wrong, because in the 80s, I think they found like a better print of Gertie, and that's when she got her fame again. But it's very interesting. Gertie was so successful that now we're going to talk about the sequel short, which is going to be called Gertie on Tour. For some reason, it was never completed, and footage of it does survive, but it's about less than 2 minutes worth of it. So we could basically talk about it now. There's no intertitles, so we don't really know the... sorry, my mistake. There are intertitles with it, but they're very... it's very interesting how the story goes, basically, or the lack of story, because, again, these are just, I think, random scenes that they finished, and they didn't really finish compiling it, I feel, which is a shame, because it really would have been something else if we could have gotten a Gertie sequel. Would it have been good? Maybe, maybe not. But the fact that it was almost done would have been great.
As far as I am aware, it was McKay himself that just decided, nah, I don't want to do this. What we saw is everything that he had animated up to the point where he just said, fuck it.
I give up, yeah. So basically, the footage of Gertie on tour that survives has Gertie meet a Toad, not Toad from Mario, although that would be an amazing crossover.
Yeah.
Gertie will now ride me in her mouth and prove that she is not afraid of me. That is my horrible Toad impression. Thank you very much.
A little more humane.
Yeah.
I do emphasize a little because, yeah.
Yeah, but basically, yeah, she finds a Toad and she hops along with it. A train passes by, which causes her basically to play with it. And it's something that's interesting. It very much reminds me of like Coco the Clown out of the Inkwell, with Coco the Clown would interact with his live action settings. This was what the Fleischers did, basically. That was their first big success before Bimbo, before Betty Boop, before Popeye, was Coco the Clown, who was a cartoon clown, and he would interact with live action things. This is very much similar to that. But then again, it was never completed, and we don't know if anybody really even got a chance to see this, or if it was like lost for decades, because there's very little information I could find about Gertie on tour.
That's a shame.
And
unfortunate.
Yeah, the last scene of it that basically happens is Gertie dreams of her life in the dinosaur age, and it's her doing a dance, a different dance compared to the one that she did in the original Gertie the Dinosaur, a little bit more advanced one, shall we say. And there's a bunch of other dinosaurs who all look identical to Gertie are watching her. And yeah, those were the only scenes that were completed. It is literally a minute and 41 seconds of runtime that Winsor McCay managed to complete, which, again, is really, really fascinating stuff.
And you got to just imagine how much work had to have been put into that in almost 2 minutes for that, and then he just went, screw it.
Yeah. Well, what happened with Winsor McCay? I mean, Winsor McCay was an extremely influential man. He inspired a lot of animators. It seems like that was kind of a one-way street, unfortunately, because after the failure of his movie, The Sinking of the forgive me for the pronunciation, Lithuania, sorry.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a World War I propaganda film. It even ends with a title card, we must, defeat the Hun, stuff like that. It was made in 1915. It was a World War I propaganda film. It failed miserably, and Winsor McCay went on to become a political cartoonist for William Randolph Hearst. Now, William Randolph Hearst was a journalist. It was
Lusitania, by the way.
Thank you very much for that. I forgive me for my horrible pronunciation. Yeah, basically, what happened with Winsor McCay, he would end up working for Hearst as a political cartoonist. And as I said earlier, he became rather bitter about animation. He felt that it was ruined by commercialized characters like Felix the Cat, which is very interesting.
Was he ahead of his time?
Yeah, and also, according to Max Fleischer, at a dinner party, he grew very, very upset, and he basically chastised the crowd for what he perceived was ruining animation. And it's a real shame that he became such a bitter man by that time.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame.
Yeah,
It was also about 100 years earlier. Another story.
That too. Yes, very right. And but Gertie, again, the character has had a very long shelf life. She appeared in Buster Keaton's movie 3 Ages. That's a movie about basically a romance told in 3 different time periods: the prehistoric times, the Roman times, and the modern era. At the beginning of it, Buster is riding a dinosaur, and the dinosaur is supposed to be Gertie, believe it or not.
Dang.
Now, this Gertie was done with a stop motion, not regular animation, but the fact that she actually made an appearance in a major motion picture was a pretty big deal. And one guy who was her major inspiration, also served to keep her alive in the public eye, was Walt Disney. On Walt Disney's television show, he showed Gertie the Dinosaur uncut in its entirety in the episode The Story of Animation, which was the first time it was screened for over 30 years or something like that. This was the first time it was actually shown, and it was even shown in its original format with an actor portraying McCay on stage and basically doing the vaudeville act. That basically would have been how Walt Disney would have seen it, or how a vaudeville audience would have seen it, rather.
During this production, Walt Disney actually had Winsor McCay's son on for assistance, and he actually took him on a tour of the Disney studio and said to him, by all rights, this should all be your father's.
Well, dang.
Wow. What a wow. That is amazing. That is a very, very humble man, because again, Winsor really could have. It really is a shame that Winsor kind of disappeared after his World War I movie, because he really, really could have done so many. Can you imagine what he would have been able to do with more advanced camera techniques and sound and rotoscope and that?
Oh, heck yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that Winsor could have done with cell animation.
That alone would have been amazing.
To draw every single thing repeatedly.
Oh, hell yeah.
Amazing. But even in the modern day, Gertie has made several appearances. She appeared in a Muppet Babies episode, The Great Muppet Cartoon Show, where she directly interacts with Gonzo. So that's
dang.
Well then.
Yeah. In Walt Disney World, there is an ice cream stand that is modeled after Gertie and has a plaque of her nearby. And they even sell Gertie cookies there, and they look adorable.
Oh, dang, yeah. They also did a remodel of her in 2016, sort of.
Oh,
pretty cute, honestly. Oh,
actually, no, wait. There's something else. There was someone has been trying to do a new Gertie the Dinosaur project for over 30 years. There is a website called, I think, GertieTheDinosaur.com.net, something like that. They have been trying to do a new Gertie the Dinosaur project since 1994, and apparently has been working on a Gertie animated movie since 2001. But the weird thing with the website is it seems to have been completely abandoned since 2016, because that's the last time that they updated it, because in the store section they have Gertie movie coming out December 2016, and well, here we are about like 7 years later, and nothing has come out so far.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, that
And
is.
the video section is just a bunch of random animal videos, so that's something that is very interesting. There is a comic book apparently available for purchase, but I could not find it on any other website, and I imagine that if you actually tried buying from it, your money would go nowhere at this point. And the thing that's
That's a shame.
interesting about this website is they say Gertie is trademarked. Now, Gertie the Dinosaur, not just the film, but also the character, is public domain, and she has been for many years now. Now, I don't know if they're trying to trademark the more modern version of Gertie on the website, which it's an interesting update of her, or an attempt at an update, but she kind of looks more like a just what you would think a cartoon dinosaur would, with very little, I think, influence from the original McCay design. Granted, you probably couldn't give her no pupils, because that with the modern design would look a little off-putting, but it feels like, again, they just thought like, oh, we could do something with this character, and then they never did. And of course, now she's public domain, so anybody can do anything with the Gertie the Dinosaur, not just whoever this website was. And the thing that's interesting too is I checked like the social media just to do research. It's been like all of them have been radio silent since like 2015, 2014, 2016. It seems like that was the time when the gas officially ran out on this attempt.
It's a shame. Like, I kind of want to see what they do with Gertie. Well,
Anyone do with Gertie? I mean, the thing is okay, Mickey Mouse became public domain early this year, and so far we are not even a month into the year yet, and there has been so much Mickey Mouse stuff. But yet,
We've had
Gertie the
a
Dinosaur.
horror Steamboat Willie game. We've had a horror Steamboat Willie movie.
I mean, granted, I don't want to see a horror Gertie the Dinosaur movie where
Oh,
she attacks
hell
no.
people.
I
I don't want to see that.
No,
Please don't
That
put that
would-
evil into this world.
don't, no.
It's strange that nobody has done anything with what is the first cartoon character of all time. Like, absolutely nothing in terms of like trying to make a modern version of it, or even any kind of version of it. Since McKay's day, there has been no attempts at sequels, at like remakes, at anything.
yeah, it's
The
like
issue
Roger
seems to
Rabbit,
be that,
sort of. Like, you have a gold mine, and yet you do nothing with it.
See, Roger
The issue
Rabbit's a
seems
little
to be
different. Because, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The issue seems to be that other than people like us who are savvy but on animation history and things of that nature, this is basically just Gertie just existing as a trivia question at best. She's
That
not
is a
well
shame.
known by and large.
That's a
That
real
is a shame,
shame.
because she deserves to be way more known. She definitely does. And
Oh yeah,
Gertie-
she needs to be in a museum. Actually,
Oh,
definitely,
hell
I mean,
yeah.
Gertie
It belongs
needs
in a
to-
museum!
Speaking of that, Gertie the Dinosaur has even managed to influence actual paleontology, because the first ever discovery, and again, forgive me for my pronunciation, Chindosaurus was actually named Gertie the Dinosaur.
Nice.
Oh, that's
It looks
adorable.
Nothing like Gertie either, which is really, it looks like a mini raptor.
Yeah, I think I feel like it would have made more sense if it was like in the Brontosaurus family or something like that. But I can kind of see why they didn't. I guess they had that name in their pocket and they've been waiting to use it for so long. They finally are like, let's just call this one Gertie. But yeah, if it was more like a Brontosaurus type of dinosaur, you could definitely see it work out better for her. But
Yep.
yeah, Gertie the Dinosaur. What is there to say? It is the reason that that animation exists. Like
Oh, hell yeah.
eventually, the laws of probability dictate that someone eventually would have done animation, would have eventually done like cartoons, but it probably would have taken a lot longer if Gertie never existed.
Oh, hell yeah.
So now it is time for the question of the week, which is, what is your favorite silent movie? And I'm going to go first. And a lot of people, now, I like more silent comedies and silent dramas. I feel like silent dramas can sometimes be okay, but I feel like a lot of times they're playing it a little too broad for my liking, which again, it makes sense. But I do feel like the comedy aspect has aged a lot better, I feel, in a lot of ways. And I'm going to say that my favorite silent movie, or rather movies, is the work of Buster Keaton. Now, no disrespect to Chaplin. Chaplin was a legend. He was a really, really excellent comedian. He definitely paved the way for a lot of modern comedy. But in my personal opinion, hands down, Keaton's movies are far and away better than Chaplin's. I mean, you have stuff like The General. That alone is such a mind-blowing, amazing movie with both comedy and pathos in it, and it mixes it perfectly. The aforementioned Three Ages. It's a romantic drama, and it also has various comedy elements to it. There's a part in Three Ages that never fails to make me laugh, which is Buster as the Roman slave, basically. He's in a pen with a lion, and he remembers the lion has a paw in its thorn. He remembers, oh, there's a story about this somehow. How will I get out of this? He pulls out a nail file, and he starts filing the lion's claws.
Oof.
It's something that, again,
Buster Keaton is the man that made the barn falling down and you just fit through the hole in it.
Yeah, he invented
that was a whole gag in every one of them.
And here's the thing with Buster. Yeah. Buster was a trooper because he did all those stunts for real. Everything you see, he did for real. Like the part with the there's a scene in The General. There's I think a gag like a cannonball on that. He had to actually measure it with tweezers, the right amount of gunpowder in the cannon to get the gag to work.
I mean, that man Evel Knievel his way through the silent movie era.
Yeah, we're talking about silent movies. My favorite.
Oh, nice. And also, I will say this:
you guys seen Metropolis?
Oh yes, Metropolis is good. I completely forgot about that one. Yeah, I was thinking more like early silent era, but no, Metropolis is phenomenal. I mean, that is really the first. Not the first science fiction, but again, like Gertie was the first influential animation. This is the first influential science fiction. I mean, the Machine Mensch, look at that. I mean, how iconic, that robot is to cinema in general. And the story is great. Fritz Lang was a genius. But also, I will say this, another one of my favorite silent film genres, I feel like it worked best with both comedy and horror. You had stuff like the original Phantom of the Opera from the 1920s, which is a movie that gave my grandfather nightmares for 3 weeks. As he tells it, he basically saw a phantom and he thought, oh, it's kind of boring, I don't understand it. Then the phantom, she removes his mask and it's like the rotting skull face. He had nightmares for 3 months that the phantom was going to kill him.
That is quite a toughie.
Yeah. And also another good one, and people probably know it all from. People probably know it only from SpongeBob nowadays, which is a shame because it is a good movie. It is Nosferatu, and by the way, I like how Frankenstein is the doctor, not the monster. The vampire is not called Nosferatu; he's called Orlok. So just want to get that out of the way because it does bug me when people say, "Oh, it's the vampire Nosferatu." No,
no. Actually, that one's very true. But no, they actually, the monster is actually named Frankenstein because
in the book, right.
Yeah, in the book.
Sorry about that. I meant that as like the thing, but yeah.
Yeah, for the movie, no.
Yeah.
But
no, Nosferatu, again, the Germans in general really, I feel, like did silent film great. Because again, you have Dr. Caligari, another fantastic movie that if you've seen Dr. Caligari, you will see influence of it in everything Tim Burton ever did, ever. It is so similar to, I think every single one of his movies takes some sort of element from a Caligari. But yeah, that is definitely going to be my picks. Probably going to be the silent horror films and also Buster Keaton. So, Angron, what would you have to say?
That is a tough one because I have not seen a whole lot of silent films. Also, hi Jordan. Also, hi Python.
Hello.
In any case, I think the one that I ultimately recognize the most and ultimately has a lot more of an impact on me than most, mainly because I saw it from the film Hugo, is Georges Méliès' The Moon.
Oh, A Trip to the Moon. Yes,
Yeah, Trip
yes,
to the
that is
Moon.
great.
That
That
is
is
the
a
Moon.
classic. Like, I've heard Georges Méliès. I don't know how accurate Hugo ultimately is, but I have heard that movie. I've heard that Georges Méliès back in the day was a magician, and upon seeing a moving picture, he ultimately got the idea to become a filmmaker and ultimately make moving pictures that pretty much felt like real life, like dreams, like journeys, like something like out of Little Nemo or something like that. You know?
Yeah, and
And
it even
the one that
predates Little Nemo. I mean, you got to
Yeah.
Trip to the Moon is 1902. That is
Well,
over
dang.
120 years old. So
Well,
that
dang.
really, yeah. And again, the fact that we're still talking about it, it really shows how amazing that movie is because it has so many iconic moments, and it's actually a lot sharper than people give it credit for. I think
Oh,
most people
hell
think of
yeah.
it as just like, oh, it's the movie where the rocket goes in the moon's eye and they go and they have the moon people, but it's actually
Yeah.
also a satire on colonialism, believe it or not.
Mm. Yeah, I'll bet that.
Yeah,
Brief mention also to the one where Edison pretty much electrifies that elephant, but those were different times.
no.
Yeah. But in any
Edison
case,
was a jerk.
he was kind of a jerk. Not too much of a jerk, but kind of a jerk. In any
Yep.
case.
I even remember that someone actually made a rip-off of the Trip to the Moon. Forgot what it was called, but it was almost beat for beat the same.
Well, believe it or not, A Trip to the
Almost.
Moon, believe it or not, A Trip to the Moon was actually the first pirated movie because when it was released in the West, it's funny you mentioned Thomas Edison. Edison pirated A Trip to the Moon from like a French copy, slapped English intertitles on it, and made money from it. Like I say, the thing that's very interesting about the silent era, and it's something that I definitely would love to see someone make a movie on, is what Thomas Edison did to try and control the movie industry in the United States because he wanted only the Black Maria studios. They would be the only ones to make movies. That he would go into like movies that were showing pictures by other movies studios like Paramount and Universal Studios and that, and have them shut down by his goons. Believe it or not, that's actually
The reason Hollywood exists is because Menlo Park was in New Jersey, so they moved all the movie stuff out to Hollywood, California, so they could be as far away from Edison as fucking possible.
exactly. That is exactly what I was going to say. That's why Hollywood exists because Edison, it literally was halfway across the country, and of course, back in those days, travel was a lot slower than it is today. You know, if you wanted to get halfway across the country, it'd probably take you a couple of days at most, maybe a couple of weeks even. So at that point, it was so far away that that Edison and his goons who would smash up these movie theaters couldn't touch him.
Yeah, that's certainly a pretty tough one. But we learned stuff. In any case.
Yeah, that is an
That's good.
excellent points right there, both of them. So,
Yeah.
Stryker, what would you have to say?
We already mentioned it, but I'm still gonna mention. I'm still gonna say what I have to say. I'm a massive fan of horror, so my choice is Nosferatu. Actually,
Nice.
I was originally going to say this one that we didn't mention actually.
Go right ahead.
The Little Train Robbery, which was a
Oh,
spoof on a movie by the same director, The Great Train Robbery, which was just
right.
the same movie but with children as the characters.
Huh. That is really cool.
I
Yeah. The Great
remember.
Train Robbery was like the first Western, shall we say? Or not
Yeah.
the first Western, but again, the first influential Western.
Yeah,
Yep.
the spoof. Basically, like just one scene that made it famous was like they had like the robbers had knocked out the engineer, and then like a few minutes later, as they're taking off in the train, the engineer stands up and starts attempting to walk out of frame, but then realizes either realizes they're still filming or he's supposed to still be knocked out, and falls back onto the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Old movies like that, live action movies, let's say, a lot of the early movies had a lot of bloopers like that because no one had invented the idea of saying cut and action when you wanted to start something in a movie. So you'd see a lot of times in these old movies, like, someone would get like beaten up in a fight, and then you'd see them get up and walk off because no one told them that they weren't supposed to be moving at that time.
Yeah. But anyway, my choice is Nosferatu, since I'm a massive fan of horror, and like this is like an early example of
Yeah.
vampires in films, as well as almost a adaptation of Dracula.
Yeah, unauthorized too, believe it or not.
Oh, unauthorized. That's
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah. Bram Stoker's widow sued to have it destroyed, and the reason it didn't is because prints had already been sent out throughout the world.
Well then,
Did you ever
Oh.
see the movie? I don't know if you've seen this. It's called Shadow of the Vampire. What it is, it's a meta-fictional movie. It's about the filming of Nosferatu, but the twist is Max Schreck, who played Orlok, really was a vampire, and I think Murnau actually kills him in the final sequence.
Oh, dang.
well
But
then,
It's a meta-fictional story. It's about the making of Nosferatu, but the person who played Orlok really was a vampire the whole time, and he actually was killing people on film.
Oh, well.
Murnau is like
movie.
and Murnau was basically hypnotized like Renfield, or in this case, he's called Mr. Knock, is in the movie. It's a really William Dafoe actually plays Max Schreck in it.
Well, dang.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and he does a really good job as it.
This has got me interested. I may take a look at it sometime.
Yeah,
Then
it's definitely really great. Yeah, you definitely gotta see it. Yeah,
Oh,
it's great.
yeah.
oh yeah.
Math, what would you have to say?
So I'm going to pull from Math's big book of weird animation trivia facts. This is the 5th oldest animated movie ever
Oh.
made, but it is currently the oldest surviving. All the other ones have been completely lost to time.
Well, dang.
The Adventures of Prince Ahmed.
Oh,
Now, what this is, if you've never heard of it, and I think Lud has,
yeah, I have.
It sounds
this
like
is a
something Saber
silhouette-
Spark would review.
probably.
Oh, yeah.
It was a silhouette movie, which it does differentiate itself from the cutout movies that appeared before it, because instead of actually showing the cutouts on the screen, they were just using the silhouettes of the cutouts to make it look cleaner, rather than the you could see like the little buttons or knobs in the cutouts themselves. This movie, to explain how detailed this movie went, first of all, it's a full 65-minute movie, which is insane for the era.
Wow.
I'll bet.
And it took 3 years to make in an era where movies typically only took about 6 months.
Damn.
The director had to take a picture 24 times. They did the actual 24 frames a second, and they painstakingly did every single one. That's why this took 3 fucking years.
Oh, dear.
Wow.
It is a very detailed movie. It's based off of 1001 Nights, obviously. It's approaching its 100th year anniversary. It's just not talked about much because this is from the era where we just don't really associate movies that much until stuff like Gulliver's Travels or Snow White here in the West.
Mm.
Huh.
Huh.
That
It's
is
a damn shame too,
interesting.
because it's a fun movie, especially if you're one of these nerds like I am. That's like, holy shit, this is where all this crap came from.
And like, I even at one point was gonna like choose Steamboat Willie as like my
Well,
choice. Thinking
Technically,
about it.
that wasn't silent; that was sound. But yeah, no, I get you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Well,
yeah.
speaking of
worries.
that, Jordan has given me her answer and she says that her favorite is Oswald the Lucky Rabbit,
Oh,
which was
dang.
the precursor to Mickey Mouse that Walt Disney lost in a thing with I think Universal Studios, which again prompted him and Albee Works to basically create Mickey Mouse. But yeah, you can definitely tell that Oswald has a lot of the spirit that Mickey would, and a little bit more mischievous sometimes in ways. And yeah, they definitely have held up. But if you watch them, only watch the ones that are made from like the Walt era, and don't watch the ones that were done like afterwards, because Universal basically tried making him into a Mickey knockoff, ironically enough, and they failed miserably. So yeah. But no, Oswald definitely is very iconic, and how Disney got him back was interesting. They traded the contract of a sportscaster to NBC Universal because Oswald was owned by Universal Studios. They basically traded them a contract of this sportscaster that Universal wanted, that their TV network NBC wanted, and in exchange they had to give Disney the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, like in perpetually for.
My favorite part about that is that the newscaster is on record as saying, "I'm going to be in a trivia book someday."
Well, there are worse ways to be remembered. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we'll talk to first Evie. What would you have to say is your favorite silent film, if you have any?
I've never seen one, but I don't think I could actually watch one without going insane. Like, I need sound.
Same,
yeah.
honestly.
So I can see why.
Otherwise-
That can be kind of hard sometimes.
Because for me, silence is deafening.
Yeah,
Well, there's a lot of silent films
I
that
kinda
do
get
have
that,
like
yeah.
musical scores in that, so it's not like there's no
Yeah.
sound whatsoever.
Like Trip to the Moon, the
No
Great
Nosferatu
Train
has a
Robbery.
score. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd probably have to find one that has like the piano.
Yeah, scores in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the score in the background.
Phantom of the Lud's Phantom of the Opera. Also, Math, what was the thing you said again?
The Adventures of Prince
I
Ahmed.
see. Gotcha. There's also Alice solves the puzzle, where Pete makes his debut.
Yeah,
Interesting
and
fact.
Pete was a bear, actually.
yeah.
Yeah. The Alice comedies, that was Walt Disney's first successful series after he left, I think, was he in Kansas or did he already left for Hollywood by then? I'm not sure. Anyway, it basically was the reverse of Max Fleischer's Out of the Inkwell. Whereas, that was a cartoon clown interacting with the real world. The Alice comedies was a real-life little girl interacting with a cartoon world.
Yeah, that's
Also,
interesting.
contrary to popular belief, silent movies, the movie itself is silent, but they typically, when they were shown in theaters, they did have sound because there was either an orchestra that was in the theater playing along to the movie at specific times, specific ways, etc.
Yes. And now we'll ask our guest, Python, what is your favorite silent movie?
I kind of did interrupt earlier since I don't know how this goes, but Metropolis.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Oh, Metropolis.
Metropolis,
Oh,
he
right,
said.
Metropolis, right.
Even though I think it's over 100 years old at this point, it's just so good, even for a silent movie.
I'll bet.
It is.
I mean, just because
Takes
you're old,
place in a
isn't bad.
dystopian future. Just society crumbling, straying away from, like, I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Hey,
No,
all good.
Metropolis is a really, again, it's the first like influential sci-fi movie dystopia. Basically, it has like one of the all-time great robots, the Machine Mensch, aka the False Maria. Which, if you've never even seen Metropolis, you probably at least know what this robot looks like.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah. Yep, that's a really good choice. So now it is time for the Dragoness Scale, where we're gonna rank her. And I'll go first, and I'm just gonna go on and say it. 10, perfect store. You know, it's not a. I mean,
Yep.
could she have a slightly better design? Maybe. Could she have more character? Maybe. But no, it's not. It's not just liking Gertie or even like loving Gertie. It's respecting it. Put some respect on it, because without Gertie the Dinosaur, without this character, we would never in a million years have any sort of animation. There wouldn't be any Mickey Mouse, there wouldn't be any Popeye, there wouldn't be any Looney Tunes, there wouldn't be any animated movies, there wouldn't be anime, none of it. There wouldn't be any video games, none of it would have existed without Gertie the Dinosaur. And I am so thankful we got to do an episode on her, because this has been absolutely amazing, and perfect score, 10 out of 10. She has reached her final form, and it cannot be improved.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
So, Angron, what would you give her?
That is a tough one. Because, like, I do understand her impact. I understand what she does, what she is, what she ultimately represents in terms of media. Her character's nice. Her design, it's good. I honestly don't like the fact that she has no pupils. Like, it's not bad, but I kind of, hot take here, I like her 2016 attempt at a redesign a little better than I do at original. If they updated the old design a little bit, gave her pupils and whatnot, that would be pretty interesting. But as it is, though, I am going to give her a very, very modest 8 out of 10. I was going to give her a 7, but hearing you say all that kind of softened my heart a little bit. So I'm going to give her a 8 out of 10.
All right. Stryker, what would you have to say?
I'm gonna have to agree with you, Lud. 10.
All right. Any
Like-
particular
You know what?
reason? or-
Period. Like, she's just too cute for words, and like the cultural impact that she had on animation as a whole, like, just amazing.
Definitely, 110%. You know, you're exactly right there. Yep. So, Math, what would you have to say?
10 out of 10. I lack the vocabulary needed to adequately describe how influential Gertie is to the medium of animation.
You know what?
That being
Okay.
said, just ignoring that and just looking at her as a character, for the era that she's from, she looks amazing. The fact that you could pick out Gertie anywhere is just astonishing, and that is just Windsor's ability to draw very recognizable characters. And then she just is so expressive, has such a great personality, is just a wonderful character. We look 100 years later at the quote-unquote live action Lion King, and it is so terrible
Ugh.
how much we have forgotten that we knew at the very beginning,
Yes.
100 years prior.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
That is like I've always thought that the live action remakes. I always say that you might as well go to the animators' graves and spit on them. You know, it really does
Yeah.
feel like it's an absolute insult to these movies that audiences won't take it seriously unless they're live action. Like, audiences can't relate to Pumbaa unless he's like a soulless, realistic looking warthog.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even
I
though
mean,
poor
and
Hog's
I
so
said it
small.
earlier.
Yeah.
And I said it earlier. Disney himself brought McKay's son and said, "In any just world, all of this should be your father's." Every animated character that exists should be looking at Gertie and thanking her for their existence.
Exactly. Exactly. That is a perfect summary of it. So Jordan has written to me. She says she is giving Gertie a 6 out of 10.
Nice.
All right. So LuckyEevee, what would you have to give her?
I guess 10 out of 10 for historical significance.
All good. And Python, our special guest this episode, what would you have to give her?
Wait, who are we talking about?
Gertie the
Gertie the
Dinosaur.
Dinosaur.
Gertie the
So it's-
Dinosaur.
The Winsor McCay short from 1914.
I'm like super uncultured here. Who is Gertie?
She's a
Okay,
dinosaur that
she's
is.
usually- She's a brontosaurus. Basically, she's from the first, not the first animated short, but let's say the first influential animated short.
I've never even heard of her until now, so I can't have an opinion here.
All right. We'll just leave you as undecided then, if that's okay.
Got it.
All right. All right. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Well, if you have any questions, or if you want to send us your emails about how you think titles it there. Sorry about that. If you have any questions, or if you want to tell us how lovely you think Gertie is, you can email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com, or visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Next time, we'll be talking about another set of classic cartoon characters, but a more, shall we say, modern adaptation of them. We're going to be talking about the 2005 Lunatics Unleashed episode, Wuthering Heights, which features Kaylee
God.
Cuoco. Yeah, that features Kaylee Cuoco, aka the new Harley Quinn, as a woman who becomes a dragoness.
Well,
So that'll also
dang.
be interesting.
That. Okay,
Hell
then.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's one thing to be excited about with it. So, that's going to be it for this week. And until next time, take care.
Yeah, later.
Later.
Adios.
Peace out.
Yep.